Hey everybody, welcome to Reading Crossbow. My name is Lana, and this is my buddy Rob.
Hey!
And you guys know us by now, hopefully. If you don't, though, we are two nerds who love to read and bring you 2 books a month from hopefully 2 different genres, but sometimes we don't mix it up very much. So Rob generally likes grimdark. I usually like romantic fantasy, but we both really like sci-fi, and we both like epic fantasy. So a lot of crossover there.
Yeah, there certainly is. And we talked previously about even some like modern or urban fantasy books.
Yeah, and we've come across some interesting ones on our show already. So we've come across Western fantasy, Western supernatural fantasy.
Yeah.
And we just had a space opera.
Yeah, and that was a pretty darker space opera, but there's still opportunities for something a little more like Star Warsian.
Yeah, well, I hope so. So yeah, we don't always know what we're gonna get into. We try to pick books we haven't read before, and sometimes we surprise ourselves. The Western fantasy definitely surprised me. I know it surprised you, Rob. So this month I did something similar. I picked an author that I knew very, very, very well, but I didn't look into the book ahead of time at all.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is Cassandra Clare. I'm just going to show you guys. And I chose The Sword Catcher. I don't know, Rob.
Sword Catcher? That seems a bit on the nose for the innuendo.
Oh, you're bad. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it kind of sells itself as a romance book.
Oh, shoot. I'm so gullible. Like, I feel like I've just, walked right into that one. Doop, doop, doop. Rob trapped. Okay. Anyway, outside of the name, also, shoot. Gold again. What is it? I'm like a crow for books.
You like shiny things.
Shoot. Gosh, I really am bad. Okay, all right. Let's get back to it, though. I've chosen Cassandra Clare's The Sword Catcher this month. And the reason why I chose it, Rob, in case you don't already know, is Cassandra Clare.
So this is a well-established fandom for you.
Yes, and I want to talk to you about it just a little bit, because I know you don't know, and which means some of our watchers might not know. But, so Cassandra Clare is well known for her Shadowhunter series. It got very popular. It was even made into I don't think it was Netflix. It wasn't that good. The show was terrible. But it did get made into, a series on TV.
I think it was a movie, too. I think it was a movie and then a series.
Yes.
Because I had this weird deja vu when I saw the ad for the series. And I was like, didn't this come out years ago? And I looked it up and I was like, oh yeah, it did. It was just a movie.
Right. A terrible movie. Really, really bad. I was very disappointed because I love her world. So she created this Shadowhunter world, and it's based off this kind of theme. It says at the very beginning of her books, all the stories are true. And so basically in her world, anything that you've heard of in fantasy, so vampires, werewolves, demons, mystical creatures, halvesy creatures, they all exist. And then these hunters hunt them if they're bad, that kind of thing. So Anyway, because I loved this series so much, I thought we'd try this because this is going to be a new series. And what's interesting is the very, very first sentence describing the book in the beginning says, riveting epic fantasy series.
Okay.
So I'm curious, when you hear the words epic fantasy, what type of novels do you think of?
I'd say something like Wheel of Time or Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I think of this author, I don't think Wheel of Time or Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
At all. So, just my first thoughts are this might be a stretch to call it that, but she is a clever world builder outside of like this being a very young adult. It doesn't get into, you know, the sex stuff that we got in Fourth Wing, not really. She writes things generally fairly modestly. Like I would say like young teen girls could read this, it'd be fine.
Okay.
And so I don't know, it'd be interesting knowing she can and has the capability of writing these beautiful worlds to see if it does live up to riveting epic fantasy series.
Okay.
I'm
yeah.
not sure.
That's sounds like a good choice.
Yeah. And also, I know you're going to get into your choice, but I couldn't help but notice before we started today's episode that the front covers of both of our books have a quote from George R. Martin.
Well, he's a prolific, I guess, reader of other people's books.
I just think that's interesting. So he says about this book. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I mean, probably just because he's so well known, it's an easy sales pitch to put his name on the front.
Does you think that he actually reads them?
No idea, but I'd assume so.
That's a lot of quotes on a lot of books.
Well, it depends on the quote.
Sure.
Be careful with the quote. Like, if the quote just says like this is a great writer, then it might might be just like they didn't read that book. It's a quote from a previous book.
Yeah, maybe, but this one's actually pretty good. This quote says, "Expert world building, swordplay and politics, a colorful cast of characters, and a story that kept me reading from the first page to the last." That's pretty good.
Yeah, mine's not quite as exciting. It says, "An excellent writer."
Oh, shoot. All right, well, we also both chose very hefty books, but before we get into yours, I just want to talk about what the book's about real quick. I didn't read much into it. I didn't read reviews. I just saw Cassandra Clare, and I thought, yeah, let's do this. So this is called The Chronicles of Castellane. So it already has a more epic sounding name than, you know, the Shadowhunter series or the Mortal Instruments. But basically, it's called The Sword Catcher, not for the reasons that you said. You dirty.
I'm totally checking Urban Dictionary as soon as this ends.
Shoot. Okay, well, if the definition is decent, we'll put it into the show. If it's not, then you guys just, you missed out. Okay, but what it means in this book, not Rob's definition, is basically, there's a king, or maybe he's the heir to the throne, I'm not quite sure, and the sword catcher is his body double. So it means, in that regard, like, he's meant to step into situations where the king or the heir to the throne, I'm still not sure if he's a prince or not, could be killed.
Okay.
So it kind of follows this epic story about these two are raised together, grew up together, so they have this sort of brotherhood. I'm actually not sure yet if it's going to follow, because we keep having these these female main characters, and I'm wondering if we're going to get a male lead. I'm not sure, but it is a romantic fantasy too. So there's two stories. It is Forbidden Lover's story, of course. You knew you couldn't get away from that. But, oh wait, I should clarify. It's not Forbidden Lovers between the prince and the sword catcher.
I think the name suggests otherwise.
It does. Yeah. But it's supposed to, I think, from what I can tell from the book jacket, that it tells the story between the prince and then his body double, and they're like brothers. I don't think either of them, love that they have such a close relationship, and one of them is like made to die for the other one, and then it's gonna follow the love story between the forbidden love. So yeah, we shall see.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I'm glad I get a chance to see an author you like so much.
Yeah, I love this author, so that makes me equally excited for you to read her as it does, like, mortified that if you really hate it, it's gonna crush me.
Well, that should be it. An interesting challenge then.
Okay, well, step up to the plate, Rob.
So when we were reviewing our last book, one of the things we discussed a little bit was a dark hero, or an unlikable hero of sorts.
Oh, here we go again.
And I don't think you've really, there's a writer who's written such an unlikable hero. I mean, he's never redeemed. He's bad the entire the entire series.
Is that this one?
Well, not this book.
Okay. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry.
Yes. So the first book in the series is called Prince of Thorns, and then I think it's King of Thorns, and then Emperor of Thorns, and it's by a writer named Mark Lawrence, and he's kind of one of the outside of Warhammer. He's kind of a big deal in the grimdark fantasy space. So in Prince of Thorns, Jorg is the main character, and he's the prince, and he is an absolutely just despicable protagonist. He is a bad guy. He does bad things. But as a reader, you end up kind of rooting for him to succeed because he's pretty justified in why he's so angry and why he wants to do the things he does. He's basically fighting against his father, the king, because his father's kind of a terrible person too. Just a different terrible. And Jorg is kind of justified in wanting to put a stop to it. So you kind of rooting for this guy that is a kind of awful person. And so that's something you haven't really got to see. And that reminded me of, so I looked up Mark Lawrence's books, and he has a newer book that came out last year. And it's called The Book That Wouldn't Burn. Now, I do not think this is going to have a Jorg type protagonist. And the reason why is because Mark Lawrence on his website, he actually rates his own books on how dark they are.
Okay.
And most of his books are in like the 3 to 4.5 points. This one he self-rated, I think, at 1.5 point. So this is his least dark book.
Okay, that's great, Rob. Thank you. I have to say that I have not. What's this called? The Book That Wouldn't Burn. I have not even read the jacket yet. I haven't read the back. I just got this in the mail, so I haven't snooped on your pick.
Yeah. So but like I said, he's had he's a pretty successful author. He has several different series that have come out, including the Prince of Thorns and its sequels, as well as another one called Red Sister, which is I think it's basically a murdery nun. I haven't read it.
Oh. That sounds fun.
But I haven't read it yet. It was actually on my list before we started this channel, so it's still on the list for something to read someday.
Okay, I just checked, and this has 559 pages. So we both picked somewhat hefty books. I mean, this was your last month's pick, and then this is this month's pick, and then I also picked a very small one last month. So 559 for The Book That Wouldn't Burn. And just curious here, where are we? We're usually on par. 604. So, for our readers, 1,100 pages this month. Y'all can do it, I promise.
I don't know as much about the premise of the book, other than essentially there seems to be some sort of grand library, like perhaps something on the scale of like a supernatural library that seems to have all knowledge that's ever existed. And there's a boy that lives in this. So, male protagonist. But there also is a female protagonist. So it's a mixed kind of like Face the Night. And I think she's on one of the worlds this library connects to or something like that. And she's going to interact with the library. So he's stuck in the library and she's going to interact with the library. And somehow their stories are going to cross. Other than that, I really don't know much about this book. It is planned as a series. And I think the second book in the series is due to come out in like April 2024.
And that's probably something we should talk about too, because I've intentionally chosen 2 books now that I know were going to be part of series that I didn't think we'd ever complete on the show. Like, there's just too many books out there for us to ever like actually fully follow a series unless they come out like 1 book a year or something. So for example, Fourth Wing, we timed that where Iron Flame came out right away, and we haven't followed up with Iron Flame on the show. I don't expect us to follow up with the next book in this series unless it came out like 7 to 7 months to a year from now. Like, and I'm not sure what you're thinking about this, but like in general, I'm not nervous about recommending series, but I guess we shouldn't promise to anybody watching that we're going to keep up with the series. It's just getting people into them, see if you like them.
Yeah, this is a tastemaker, I guess, trying to find books for people to try.
But this is less of a taste and more of like a try the entree first. These are some hefty books, but we'll get there. All right, well, that's it for this month. So we have 2 books for you. We have The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence and Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. And both authors that we each endorse, we each have liked, have read numerous books from them. And so should be some solid recommendations from each of us this month.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading these books.
All right, everyone, if you want to get these books, check out the links below, and then you'll find the links to both of these books on Amazon. Please order ahead of time, read them with us. We'd love for you to join in on our Discord and contribute to the conversation about these books, but that's not all we post there. I've posted recently about some arts and crafts I've done, and I know Rob wants to talk about some more Warhammer stuff, so join in on the conversation there. Also, please make sure to hit like and subscribe, because if not, I'm gonna rope in Robert on one of my home improvement projects. I'm expanding my library and he gets to help.
Please.